back it up, look at the research, and then tell everybody you know, we need action. We need millions of people rising up. First, why should you trust me when I tell you how scared I am? Last fall, you and I talked, Mike, and I said, within 6 months, according to the blueprint, which is always predictive, you're going to start to see terrorists being charged with the definition of terrorism expand so that you're going to see headlines where people who look like ordinary Americans are going to be charged as terrorists. I just met Ian Bicking, the brother of Monica Bicking, a middle-class white guy from the Midwest, clean, well scrubbed, just your average American Joe, terrified because his sister, for protesting, has been named as a terrorist and is facing $250,000 in legal fees and possibly many years in prison. I said last fall that you're going to start seeing mass arrests within 6 months. Those mass arrests occurred. They were sweeps of immigrants. They were terrifying. They were processed behind closed doors, behind blacked out windows. I think that they were practice. I said you're going to start seeing journalists being arrested. Dozens of journalists were arrested at the RNC, including Amy Goodman, Jane Hampshire of Fire Dog Lake. And we haven't seen a lot of video footage of the RNC because I was chilled to discover that police exposed the film of protesters or ruined the recording apparatuses of protesters. And so we've posted some chilling footage on the website for our organization where you can see the abuse of citizens, but the person who got us that footage had to bury it until after he was released from his arrest so he could retrieve it. This is what happens in the Soviet Union. This is what happens in a closed society. And then I said you're going to start to see it, it being made easier for the president to declare martial law, to declare a state of emergency. And I said, and I've been saying for months, leading up to the election, you're going to start to see instability, hyped threats, hyped emergencies, hyped crises in order to create an atmosphere of urgency to justify a crackdown. And I'm sorry to tell you, every single one of those things has come true. And so I'm very sorry to tell you, but I feel like I don't know, I feel like this is my one chance to alert America. This morning, I was told about this last night, and I couldn't believe it, the way you can't believe these things in America, but then check it out. Go to C-SPAN, go to YouTube, type in Representative Brad Sherman and martial law. There is a clip on C-SPAN which explains a lot, if it's true, but he's a Democratic representative from the 27th District, Sherman Oaks, Northridge, California. I have no reason to believe he's insane. And he is saying in private conversation, he's saying that the administration has hyped an atmosphere of crisis around the bailout. And I believe it, because looking at the language Bush is using, it's not to stabilize markets. It's, this is an emergency. Be afraid. It's coming to you. It's going to get worse and worse. This is not FDR language. This is the way you whip up agitated markets. It's not the way you calm them. And, Sarah Palin, 20 times, we're in crisis mode. We're in crisis mode. We're in crisis mode. And he said, Representative Sherman said that in private conversations, and he didn't name a subject, which makes sense. It was very brave of him to do this. He said in private conversations, members have been told that if they didn't pass the bailout bill, the market was going to go down 1,000 points every day, and by Monday, he said, they would be facing martial law. They were threatened with martial law. He said several members in private conversations were threatened with martial law if they didn't do as he said. Now, why should we take this seriously? This is my other terrible piece of news, but we have to wake up. We have to wake up. On October 1st, the 1st Brigade of the 3rd Infantry Division was deployed in the United States of America. For the first time since 1807, when a bright line was placed preventing military from policing American streets, a military brigade that's 3,000 to 4,000 soldiers has been brought in to police our streets. Army Times reported it. Don't take my word for it. Now, why is this terrifying? Well, three things. What is the definition of a police state? A police state is when the leader has his own army on the street and his own treasury. Bear with me. The bailout bill had fine print that gave the president alone $100 billion in discretionary spending with no oversight. Who knows what the final bill looks like? We haven't seen the fine print, but I'm willing to bet you that there's an intervention by the president that gives him more power than he had before in the national economy. You see this always in a police state. The leader intervenes into the national economy and creates a chunk of it that doesn't have adequate oversight or that empowers him further. The second thing you always see, the definition of a police state, is troops on the ground in civilian contexts. Now, why am I terrified by these troops? Why should I not be reassured that, oh, these are our guys and it's America? Here's why. If you look at the history of closing societies, what starts to happen, this happened in Italy in 1920, it happened in Germany in 1933. What starts to happen is it'll still be a democracy, but the president or the leader or the Führer will start to find a way to deploy military forces at his discretion. Now, these soldiers are not answerable to the Congress of the United States. They are answerable to the President of the United States. He is the commander-in-chief. That is the chain of command. That is the chain of command. So he can send these troops to your home. He can send these troops to outside voting booths. He can send them to protests. He can send them inside the halls of Congress, which is what both Mussolini and Hitler did when it was still a democracy, to intimidate legislators.